Hi. So I feel like first I need to explain to you why Botswana. And it is a bit of an oddity in this conference, but when I first said Botswana, Paul looked at me like I was a little bit crazy. But Botswana, because I know what the answer is for Botswana, it's services, and I wanted to have an example in this conference of a country, of a place where services are growing, where services have a huge potential. It's a country that's landlocked, and so instead of always thinking and talking about manufacturing, I thought it would be useful to have an example of a country that might take off based on the service sector as opposed to the industrial sector. Oh, Botswana. So that's why Botswana, and so then I want to explain to you, so I have a graph that I'm going to show in a second, which is what I got all excited about, which is when I got in touch with Keith. So I first went to Botswana a couple of years ago as an external examiner for the University of Botswana. And, well, actually, it was even before that, for a conference for the World Bank. So I was teaching classes on how to evaluate the impact of trade and globalization on poverty. And I heard over and over again that it's the fault of the Chinese. The cheap Chinese imports are killing our businesses. We haven't talked very much about trade and globalization in this conference, but I know it's not just people in Botswana that are saying that. They're saying it all over Africa. And so Botswana is a wonderful place to visit. People are so easy to deal with. It's extremely safe. They have all this great data. And guess what? Botswana's trade policy is completely determined by South Africa. So and what else happened between 1990 and 2005 in Botswana besides the fact that income inequality increased, and Botswana has the third highest income inequality in the world, which blew my mind because we all think of Botswana as this superstar. What happened between 1990 and 2005, the period for which all these great data are available, is that apartheid ended in South Africa. And with the end of apartheid in South Africa, there was a dramatic fall in tariffs. So, and this dramatic fall in tariffs led to a big increase in imports in Botswana. So if you just regress simple volumes of imports on 4-digit tariff levels, the correlation is like extremely high, and the R squared is something like 0.7. So I wanted to understand. So I thought, wow, this is perfect. It's a perfect natural experiment in which to study the impact of this trade liberalization on poverty, which is so high and has increased in Botswana, and income inequality. And when I saw this picture,
I don't think it's on yet. Or at least I can't. No, it's not. It's not.
Oh, here.
I don't think. Or at least I can't. Sorry.
Oh. Okay, never mind. It's not a big deal. So, what I was going to show you is this bubble graph. Do you have a piece of chalk? And the size of the, it's the same graph that we had in the paper with Danny. And if you look at the bubble graph with the data that I was using, you see this huge increase in the share of the labor force in agriculture, reduction in the share of the labor force in manufacturing, increase in wholesale and retail trade, and it's like, oh my God, this trade liberalization really did have an enormous impact on people in Botswana. So that's why I was excited, just because I was going to get this effect, and it was well identified, and people haven't been able to do that before. And people were telling me that on the street. But turns out the data were, I think maybe the data were wrong, but I haven't given up yet. I'm going back to Botswana tomorrow night to try to figure it out. But I almost wish I had never been to Botswana. So then if you look at if you use different data, the data that we think are right, the census data, well then what you see is a sort of a positively sloped line, and you see that productivity in services is higher than actually productivity in manufacturing, and it's a lot higher than productivity in agriculture. So it's interesting because it fits extremely well with what I thought when I went to Botswana, which is they have a very well-educated population. It's safe. There are a lot of natural wonders like game parks and things to see in Botswana. So why doesn't Botswana, and they have a beautiful brand new university. So why don't they just invest a little bit of money in bringing in internationally renowned professors? You know, Botswana could become, the University of Botswana could become this amazing university, and there's all this potential. And they also have not invested, but they haven't invested in infrastructure. So, for example, the internet. If they could do this, and if they did that, it would make a huge difference. So I guess my question, so I'm really only left with a question. And by the way, I didn't have a paper to comment on. So, so the question is, why isn't the government doing that? They've done so well at managing their mining revenues and so forth. So why aren't they doing more to reduce poverty and inequality, and why aren't people more upset about it? And then I had one more thing to say about data. So we had to throw Botswana out of the paper with Danny because the data are no good. But one nice thing that has come out of this whole project is an emphasis now to get better data for Africa, national accounts data for Africa by sector, from the period 1960 to 2010. So we're working in a bunch of different countries in Africa, and we're trying to be as careful as we can about the data. And I'm kind of amazed that nobody has tried to do that before, but it shows you how much potential there is for doing more and learning more about African countries.